Ambassador Ischinger, thank you so much for making time with Deutsche Welle here in Milwaukee.
Pleasure to be in Milwaukee with Deutsche Welle.
Wonderful. The pick of JD Vance is making big headlines also back home in Germany. What do you make of it?
I'd say no reason to panic. Stay calm. In the history of the United States, the role of the vice president has never been, a kind of a secretary of state. It has always been the man in the background or the woman in the background. So there's no reason to believe that just because JD Vance, in his earlier roles as a candidate or as a senator, said certain things which give rise to concern. Yes, they do, because they sound rather strongly isolationist. But there's no reason to believe that that's going to be, 100% translated into the policies of a future Trump administration. Point one. Point two, I will be the last person to believe that Donald Trump, with his own convictions and with his own ideas, is going to be dominated by whatever Mr. Vance thinks. I think Donald Trump was Donald Trump, is Donald Trump, will remain Donald Trump, and he will decide what this administration, if he is elected president, will want to do. So I would not get overly excited, and I would certainly recommend not to panic just because Mr. Vance is now the vice presidential nominee. Very last point, this man is, according to everything I know about him, and his wife, by the way, this is an extremely gifted and successful couple. These two people are not dumb. They are highly educated, and he has this totally American trajectory from the underclass, from out of nowhere, from a destroyed family. He made it to the top, both in terms of business success, but also in terms of this extremely impressive book, which he wrote about his own way from where he came in West Virginia to this position where he could actually end up being president of the United States.
But that would be my question, Dr. Ischinger. I mean, Donald Trump is also 78 years old. One never knows. He could become the president. And what would that mean for the Ukraine aid and everything else? I mean, you have been the head of the Munich Security Conference for so many years. What does that mean, or what could that mean, I shall say?
Well, it means probably that we as an alliance and we as members of an alliance led for the last 75 years by the United States, that we need to grow out of the kita, out of kindergarten. We need to deal with our own responsibilities, our own security issues, our threats. Speaking of Russia and other threats, we need to deal with them responsibly on our own. It's great if we can maintain the American protective nuclear umbrella and the very, very close transatlantic partnership. But this kind of relationship where we now for decades apparently thought that we can outsource forever the care and the cost to a certain extent of our own security to the American people, that's just not a good idea. And this is why maybe this vice presidential nomination will also help serve to be a kind of a wake-up call for those in our own country, in Germany and elsewhere in Europe, who believe that things have been so good for the last 50, 70, why don't we just continue? They will not continue. America has decided, Vance or no Vance, that the next challenge is China. And they will do everything to reduce their burden in Europe. And in other words, it's up to us. And we should be confident enough and proud enough to handle our own security needs. In other words, let's grow up.
But we are not there yet, right? And if Donald Trump gets elected, and the polls at least make it very likely in the moment, everything can change. What would that mean for Germany and Europe regarding Russia? Right now in the moment, I'm not talking about the future, but let's say in January when the next president is inaugurated.
Well, I am told by all my interlocutors here in in Milwaukee from the Republican team, from the campaign insiders, that in fact the message is Donald Trump would, if elected president, make a serious attempt to initiate negotiations, discussions, with an aim to end this war as quickly as possible. So the question is not whether and if, the question is how. And I do not believe that Donald Trump and his advisors would want to end up with a kind of a repetition of Afghanistan, where the rest of the world will say, wow, after Afghanistan in 2021, now in 2025, America is leaving a friend and ally alone again, alone for the wolves to start feeding on it. I don't think that is going to happen. Let's not forget, this Donald Trump was the American president who was the first to send lethal weapons to Ukraine. That's sometimes forgotten in our own debate. So I'm against demonizing Trump and his command. I think we will have huge difficulties. Things will be tough. But then, I'm old enough. I was around as a young diplomat when we had Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan 40 plus years ago. We've always had huge challenges and sometimes enormous differences in view, real crises. They were all overcome. The NATO is today in better shape than it's ever been in. We're now 32 members. We got Sweden and Finland as new members. Turkey remains a member of the alliance. So what are we complaining about? Let's be proud of what we have achieved. And let's start a reasonably adult dialogue with whoever is going to be in the White House next January. So no panic, please.
You've been the ambassador also to the United States, the German ambassador, so you know this country really very well. Your fellow party member, Jens Spahn, told Deutsche Welle that, I quote him here, one could find common interest with Donald Trump, saying also that Germany, the German lawmakers really have to find a way to work with the new government if it might be a Trump White House. What do you say to that?
I think this is a realistic view. We know from the first 4 years that Donald Trump is not really an ideologue. He is, as they say, a transactional guy. He wants to do a deal. He is interested in deals. And if we can go to him and say, look, we are interested in a new trade deal across the Atlantic. As you remember, earlier attempts failed, rather miserably, unfortunately. I don't think that he would flat out refuse to do that. He would say, what's in it for me? What's in it for the American people? So I think that there is a significant number of issues. Trade, investment, China, the Middle East, where we could, if we try hard enough, find common ground and maintain the transatlantic and the EU-US relationship alive and kicking.
The current German government seems to be very critical with Donald Trump. Are they closing doors?
I hope they are not. I think the fact that there is here in Milwaukee at the moment a good presence, a much better presence than 8 years ago when Donald Trump was first elected. We had zero contacts with the Trump team. There are now members of the Bundestag from different parliamentary groups. There are representatives of the government. German ambassador is here, and a few other German administration officials. So I think we are sufficiently well prepared, and we have the phone numbers of the people that we would want to talk to once and if Donald Trump, after November the 5th, is actually going to be elected. It has not yet happened. The other option is still available.
The first days of the Republican National Conventions were dominated, of course, by the talk about the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Do you think this will dominate the next weeks and months?
Well, I see two things here. I was speaking earlier today to somebody who is really a very, very close advisor to Donald Trump. And this person explained to me and to a couple of friends that he has found the tone of how Donald Trump talks to them different from what it was before the assassination attempt. And apparently, the word has been given by Donald Trump to his advisors, tone it down. We don't want to be as aggressive vis-a-vis the Democrats as we traditionally have been. Apparently, his speech for tomorrow is being revised in order to be more inclusive, more harmony-driven, more interested in uniting the nation. Let's see how that comes out. My question is, let's assume he does that and comes up with a uniting kind of speech. Then the next question, my question would be, is that going to be sustainable? Can Donald Trump, whose nature is one of, being rather aggressive, that's how he's made his career, can he sustain that? Can he be, the elder statesman? I mean, he's 78 or so. He deserves to behave like an elder statesman. Can he do that with his track record? Big question mark.
Last question. You just mentioned Joe Biden, President Biden. This whole debate about whether he should run again or not, do you fear that this kind of is destabilizing a global order in a way? Is this weakening the strength of the United States?
I don't think so. I think there will need to be a final decision in coming days or so. I think the discussions within the Democratic camp are continuing. They're not ending. They're continuing. More voices are raising the question: what is the right way for the Democrats to proceed? If Joe Biden decides to step down from the campaign, that doesn't mean he steps down from the presidency. He would continue to serve as president of the United States until January the 20th, right? So this is a pretty, another more than half a year for him. And if you want to have my view, a person who has been for 3 decades a senator. I met him first when he was a young senator from Delaware, who served for 2 terms as Vice President of the United States, who has had 4 years as at least from a European vantage point, very successful role as President of the United States. He came to Europe's help when Russia started this aggressive war in Ukraine. He deserves a lot of praise from Europe. If he decides to step down, that would be, I think, a highly dignified way to end one of the most successful political careers in recent American history, and he would go down as a historic figure. It's not our job, certainly not my job, to give unnecessary advice, but I just hope that the solution that can be found here is one that allows this man to look dignified.
Ambassador Ischinger, thank you so much.
Thank you. Dankeschön.